I'm talking political marketing with Ben Thomas, David Slack and Simon Wilson. Simon, you don't buy the idea of the truth of the spin about Key, do you? You don't think he's slippery and shifty?
The thing that interests me most about Key is that he made it possible for Section 59 to be repealed last year. That was the law that meant that violence against children became illegal in this country. Now, he didn't need to do that. There were no votes in it for him. I think there were probably votes that he lost in doing that. Party leaders said to me, we really don't know why he did that. Yeah. But I think he did it because he thought it was right. I think it's that simple. I think he decided in the invention of himself as a politician that that was the kind of place and that was the kind of country that that's the kind of place he'd like to stand in, that's the kind of country he would like to be leader of.
So when you were doing the story, what was the message that National were trying to give you as a journalist?
What they told me, and this of course was back some months ago, what they really wanted me to believe that he was that he was a messiah. I mean, they never used those words, but I got stories from all of them about the first time I met John Key. I knew I was in the presence of someone remarkable, extraordinary. And the same anecdote got trotted out by several different people as if it was all the same meeting, but of course it wasn't.
But I think Labour are trying to do very much the same thing with Helen Clark at the moment. They've had the platform where
That's right.
She always works best in the media, which is out of the country, oddly enough. And when you look at the way that she's been presented, and was presented by Cullen during the Congress as the great leader.
Our leadership has been superb. Helen is a significant international figure. People know the country is in safe hands, that any crisis will be met with firmness and clarity, not panic.
What do you think of that pitch for Clark?
She's actually got a clear idea of what she wants to do and what she wants to get, and especially geopolitics is fascinated her all her career. And I think this is your contrast with what Simon was positing before. If you come into politics simply for the job, you don't actually know what you stand for. And you are going to look as though
this
you're...
sounds like Labour spin, David. Are we just doing what...
It might, and yet the fact is, I think it is hard to say that it's egregious spin to say that the man is slippery if you can't be sure, if he's not sure what he stands for.
What do you make of it, Ben?
Well, the branding of both the current leaders by the Labour Party comes from the early advantage that Key had over Clark. You can even see it. Characterising John Key as slippery is nothing more than a reflection of the fact that Labour couldn't actually get a pin on him. They couldn't decide whether he was a rich prick or whether he was a working-class scab, to use two of Michael Cullen's epithets about him. And Helen Clark, it's the same kind of thing, although what we're seeing now is more of a projection into the future, because
the plan for the future thing,
plan
which is the Kevin Rudd line.
It's the PR people call it the theatre of the mind. Helen Clark of old had strategies. She was a policy wonk. This Helen has a plan which you can hold in your hands, you can see it, you can envisage it. And she's sort of leading the country into the future because voters internalise the status quo. They figure we've already banked this gain from working for families for interest-free student loans for the last 8 years of a Labour government. And John Key is ambitious for our future, right? Which is why the Labour Party has moved into the future as well, and they're talking about the plan. Ambition
was a big word actually last year around Key, wasn't it? They tried to get that seeded everywhere, and particularly in the whole. I mean, maybe we should actually have a look at at a reel of the way that Key was being positioned in the media last year, which was as the State House kid done good.
His life experience is a political marketer's dream.
I grew up in the State House, brought up by a solo mother. The fact that I was given an education by the state and lucky enough, and I think hopefully motivated enough to go on and have a successful career, I would put that as one definition of the New Zealand dream.
I wanted to just finally, we've talked about spin, we've seen newspaper columnists in the last few months even give spin advice. I wonder whether the whole conversation is becoming about it. How do the news media get past it and actually write about something that matters?
Well, you've got this problem in the gallery that they do love the soap opera of the thing and they want to see the character. First they've got
it's
a
all
bright, shiny new character, and then something interesting happens to him to make it interesting, freshly new, and on you go. And it is hard to break out of the fun of that. and it becomes much more, it's much easier to tell stories about who's ahead and who's losing than does this policy make much more sense than this. And then you've got this Tweedledee, Tweedledum problem where you've got both people making a grab for the centre so that it's actually becoming harder to distinguish policy. Of course, along comes Roger Douglas and you've got a story.
So, buzzwords, we've already talked about how quickly the spin turns over. Quick around the panel before we finish up. Buzzwords for this election campaign, will they be the ones we're hearing now?
Waste for sure, I would say, because the argument is the bureaucrats are what's standing between you and your tax cuts, and we're going to get rid of them, even though I've got bureaucrats in my own office writing my talking points.
I don't know what the words will be, but the underlying issue will be trust, and that's what Slippery's about. That's what all the debates are about. It's going to be which of these politicians, which of these leaders.
Do you think that will actually guide journalistic priorities and reporting? If one
will.
Party's making trust the issue?
Yes, I think the underlying issue in the media, as with and in voters' minds, will be which do we trust, and that'll be the media will be full of that message in different ways.
Ben?
And that means people combing through transcripts and basically sort of SAS level intelligence on every candidate that's going through.
Do you seriously expect we'll see that? We'll see deep scrutiny of candidates?
This is going to be the stalker election. This is going to be people following around candidates with cell phone cameras, pictures of public meetings, transcripts of radio interviews, every on the record comment. We've already seen a lot of it with Key, and we've seen a lot of it from the more distasteful branches of the sort of National Party and the right. I think that's what we'll be seeing in the election.
Of course, you don't have to stalk to get some of the most incriminating footage. I think the four cabinet ministers singing Kenny Rogers are going to echo in their ears all the way to this election, and they're going to suffer for it.